Could this be you cycling in Patagonia in South America? Let me try again. Could this be you on this cyclone? Yes. Well, if you thought no, think again. So, my talk is not about cycling. Be reassured. It's about creating opportunities. It's about living as many lives as you can. So I'm here, I'm Charles Henry, my wife is here, Marion. And I just want to share with you our small experience, very small experience in basically trying to think slightly outside of the box and in taking a slightly different path. Before this picture was taken, I was wearing suits. I was an executive at General Electric, and I had entered into management programs, got promoted, got to the fast track, moved to New York to the headquarters, and I had quite a nice life. But at some point, I decided to change. I decided it was time to try something else, to put the race to the top and the career programs and the good paychecks on the side, and maybe try something slightly different. So one day we quit our jobs, bought 2 bicycles, and went. So after 2 years of travel, 16 countries, 16,000 miles, we finally came back. And we tried to put together what we had learned at GE in the corporate life and what we had learned through this trip. And so Marion, she went for a development agency. She's now working for a development agency, the French development agency, and she's covering Africa, managing state aid, the French state aid in Africa. I personally took the road of the NGO and I worked in microfinance, setting up microfinance programs in Bangladesh and China and Egypt for a while. But after that, I wanted to change again. So after having gone through the corporate world of GE, one of the most admired company in the world, and the world of NGOs, I thought, why not try the world of consulting? And I became partner in a consulting firm. And you can see this slide here, it has some logos. Hopefully in a few years, there will be even more logos, or even more trips, because I mean, it's not just putting my career here, it's also trying to combine how time off your career can help you build both your life and your career. And basically, it's also about how the self-confidence that we learned through the trip we did helped us go through those changes in career. Either welcome them when they happen, when they were not, planned, or basically create them. So, how did this all happen? Well, we're at a university. I'm sure you've read philosopher. You must have known about Mr. Descartes, the French philosopher who wrote, "I think, therefore I am." Well, for us, I think a slightly truer statement would be, "I think, therefore I plan." I mean, we spend most of our time planning. We're full, and maybe this room is full of economists who are planning, what is the future growth of GDP for France or for UK or for Europe. So we're on this way of thinking about planning. And at GE, before I left, I was actually part of a team called Financial Planning and Analysis. And we were supposed to be the top guys, doing all the planning for GE and trying to forecast where it would grow. So obviously, when I started thinking about this trip, I started planning the trip. And so we planned for 6 months. We looked, the way we did it is we put a map of the world in our living room, huge map. We bought the biggest map you can find in the stores. We gave each other 20 pins. She had 20 red pins, I had 20 blue pins. And each of us would choose countries. The problem is if you choose Kazakhstan and then Bolivia, how do you join the two? So we had debates on, and finally we ended up with a route of roughly 20 countries that we could cover in more or less a continuous journey. And we continued planning. We obviously read all the books there was to read about those countries. We read all the travelers' diaries. I met many, many travelers. We also joint association, you know, kind of crazy small association who have 20 members, like Friends of Bhutan, or, you know, how to build a shack or an ice shack in Laponi. But they exist, and they're fantastic. You find great people there who love traveling. And we did also, of course, we had to think about the budget. We had to think about the road. We had to think about dates, you know, when to travel, where. We looked also at all the, on the budget side, you know, because we were traveling on a very low budget, we think about, you know, what we're gonna spend. And finally, we went. And right before that, I thought, well, we're gonna be out there for quite a while. So I decided to enroll in a training class to become an instructor outward bound. So for 3 months, I was outside in the wilderness, becoming an instructor for outward bound. And at that time, I felt ready to go. We had planned everything. I was fit physically and mentally, and here we go. But plans always go wrong, as you all know. You know, we were professional planners, and we missed everything. We did not do probably a third of the route we had planned. So what happened? Well, what happened is that basically you have so many things that went wrong. Well, weather, you know. We ended up being caught up with monsoon rains in Asia that turned roads into basically mud, and where we couldn't put our bike and had to carry the bike. We had health hazards. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in those years, 2003, there was a SRAS epidemic in South China. Well, at the time, we were just at the door. We were in Vietnam, trying to enter China, and we listened to the radio, and we hear that people are dying of SRAS in southern China, and there was at the time no medication. So boom, we had to change our route and forget entering China. We also had road conditions, you know. This is, for example, the border we crossed between Chile and Argentina. Well, we started that journey on a paved road, and suddenly it turned into a trail through the woods. And it took us nearly 8 hours to go for 20K and go over the border of Chile to Argentina. We also had the day where we lost our map when we were on the largest salt lake of the world, 3,000 meters high in Bolivia. I had spent 5 days building up that map, copying, going through all the libraries in La Paz, the capital of Bolivia, trying to create a map of that salt lake and the desert that is near south of it, going to Argentina and Chile. And suddenly we open up the map and there was a wind blow and the map starts flying. And we raced after it, and we raced and we raced and we raced, and the wind was just too strong, and the map was gone. Well, interesting situation. And this is the mud, you know. This is something, this was supposed to be a new road. Everybody told us the road is brand new. They just forgot to tell us that after monsoon rain in Asia, you end up having to carry your bike. There was also another thing we didn't think about, is was strength. You know, I love Marion, but she's a woman. And what that means is that our cycle are not the same. Our rhythm are not the same. So it's okay on a, you know, for a few days, but when you start cycling for hours per day and for weeks after weeks, and one guy is in the morning, is an early riser, has all his energy in the morning, and after noon is, you know, has no batteries left. When the other one is actually more in the endurance, like I was a marathon runner, so I was trained to go for long distance. And I would see in the morning, I would see Marion go fast like this, you know, pass me up. And I was telling her, you know, go slow, it's gonna be a long day. And then I would pass her at 2 o'clock and she was on the side and she was totally, you know, dead, exhausted. No more energy. So how do you balance those two rhythms, and how do you get together at the end of the day? Because we had only one tent. I mean, it's not like we were traveling together. So, and there was also some other events which were not planned, of course, when we decided to get married in the middle of a trip, and obviously on a bicycle. So should we just stop there, or should we go to what we think was the real game changer here? Because everything I showed you is basically, I mean, it's funny, but it's nice. But I think the lesson for us is in the switch it off and live the moment. We made 3 bold choices for this trip. No smartphone, no return date, go slow. So we all have smartphones. We all check our emails and SMSs and WhatsApp all day long, many times per hour, even myself. I mean, now I'm a partner in a consulting firm. Believe me, my phone is always on. But at the time, we thought, can we try something different? Can you switch it off for an hour or a day? Well, we decided to switch it off for 2 years. Now, I'm not saying, there's no judgment here, okay? I'm just trying to give you a different perspective as to what if, what if you tried? The reason we did that is there was a very practical reason. I mean, imagine we were traveling totally autonomously, okay? We were carrying 60 kilos of gears. We had our tents, our cookers and everything, water, food and everything. So obviously we would not find a plug with power every night to recharge our phones. So most of the time, had we had our phones, they would have been empty when we would have to really need it to use it, okay? And when we were not camping, we were trying to find hospitality. And the first thing you're not going to ask the people is, can you recharge your phone, when those people, for most of them, don't have electricity just a few hours per day. So we didn't take it just for that reason. But there was another reason why not to take it. It was really trying to let go of the addiction of that device, trying to let go of the addiction of being connected, trying to let go of the addiction of being in this instantaneity of the relationship, and trying to go for a different model where you have no strings attached, no strings back home, where you're not looking for, what did your friend yesterday back in Paris. Now, it has a price. I'm not saying it's easy, because obviously some things were happening back home when we were traveling without a phone. And people we loved passed away, stuff like this. And of course, some of our parents, were really worried to know where we were physically. So obviously we were giving back some news from time to time from web cafes and so on. But it was really an exercise in letting go. And the third reason, I think, is a reason around trust. Fundamentally, we were trusting life, trusting that nothing fatal would happen to us. I know it's a very personal opinion, and I know the world today and the recent events we've seen in France and in Belgium are not, promoting that idea, but fundamentally this was our belief, is that we don't necessarily need that. So that was bold choice number 1, no phones. Bold choice number 2, is about no return date. No return date. You're telling your parents you're going on a trip and you have no return date. Okay? So that means basically no limit, no end date. You don't know when you're coming back. This is also quite a change in paradigm, And the idea here is that time is the essence. Time is the scarce value. Time is your wealth. And since you've decided to get off the beaten path, off the race to the top job, you've quit your jobs, why not transform that time in a real wealth for yourself, okay? As parents today and as a professional today, I know how little time I have because I have all those responsibilities, okay? But if you can suddenly create spaces, create moments in your life where you give yourself time, truly time, open-ended time. Now, it's great because now, I was a student, but it's been quite a few years. Now, most of you will have a break during your degree and will go on sabbatical, and please do that. Please take that opportunity. It's absolutely awesome, so I encourage you to do it. And once you're an employee in a large corporation, in most countries, you'll find laws, that allow you to also go on a sabbatical as an employee. We choose not to do that, because in those two cases, it's absolutely great, but there's a little twist to it. There's a return date. You have to come back and finish your studies. You have to come back and take back your job, okay? We wanted to try something where once you start, you have no countdown. You're not counting down anything. You're just going forward. The third bold choice was about slowness. We decided to go at the pace of a human being. We tried to go at a pace of what our own body would be able to do. So when we were tired, we would stop. When we were in great shape, we would bike 100K a day, okay? But really go with your body and listen to your body and go as slow as a human being. Now, when you take those three bold choices together, the no smartphone, the no return date, and the no speed, you're suddenly in a new paradigm of our daily lives. And suddenly, things change. You create opportunities for encounters, and suddenly doors open. Like they've opened here in Pakistan, or here in Iran. I mean, can you imagine, we're in Pakistan with a visa for 7 days. We stayed 4 weeks. Because we loved the country and because we were welcomed everywhere and invited to their homes for a tea, for a dinner, for several days. And it was the same thing in Iran. So, in conclusion, I would say, do not overthink. That's our education, planning, thinking. But dare to be challenged. Dare to be challenged in your daily habits, in the way you're looking at things, in your beliefs, in your look at the world. Dare to be weak in a way, to be the stranger. And also look at the time as a way to cleanse yourself. I mean, the reason why we went on an open road also was, as time goes on, you're being more and more cleaner and lighter and renewed and refreshed. So live your dreams, and I will leave you with these final thoughts. If not now, then when? Thank you.